a video that just came out, Legal Mindset. Legal Mindset is one of my favorite YouTubers. He's pretty cool with his like bin analysis. If you want to support the video, I highly suggest you watch the Legal Mindset video. I just want to react to it because I've been following this case since the very beginning. If you didn't know, I have a criminal justice degree. Bachelor's in it. I didn't end up going into that career, but man, I studied law for like 10 years, right? And I don't know as much as a lawyer or something, but I'm like in that sweet spot in between. I know more than the average police officer and less than a lawyer. So, I'm really excited for this video. And again, please support the video. It's done recently, and normally I wouldn't, do a reaction video to a video that's recent. So I will post all the information in the description when I put this on YouTube and everything. So, all right.
Some background here.
Oops. Let me go ahead and...
The Lego scandal is going federal. We're going to talk about it today on the Legal Mindset. We teach.
This is actually a big deal for it to go federal because this is actually what Ben and everybody else wanted. If it was state, there would be like problems that could arise that federal would have actually fixed. This also means that federal laws have been broken, and there's a greater things aren't as wishy-washy when it's federal.
You to be your own judge. I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney, and I've been covering this bricks and minifigs scandal, the Lego scandal, really from the beginning. And we have a new massive turn here today as the case appears to be heading from state court to federal court. So first of all,
by the way, that's a win. If you're on Reckless Ben side like me, that's a huge win.
Background here on June 26, Ben, that is Reckless Ben, and Victor Wynn filed a notice of removal in the U.S. District Court for Utah. That is the federal court. So essentially, that is the one that covers all of Utah. There's one district in Utah, so there's not.
I should give a little bit of a backstory, right? So if you haven't followed this story, which I did post a reaction video on one of Reckless Ben's videos in the past. If you haven't followed this story, right, there was a bunch of Legos that was told to the public that was valued at $200,000. It's a massive Star Wars collection that was given to Bricks and Minifigs store, right? They're a franchise, kind of like McDonald's, where they have a whole bunch of like different like owners and everything. However, corporate still runs the brand and still makes like the mega decisions when it comes to all the franchises and stuff, right? So it was found out that the corporate office was totally involved in this, but they didn't give the guy who signed the co-assignment to have Bricks and Minifigs sell his Star Wars collection, right? He would take like, I think it was a 75-25% cut or something like that. And he was Menzel was his last name, and he was supposed to get paid for all these Legos, and he didn't. And when he asked for the Legos to come back after the store changed hands ownership wise, right, they wouldn't give him back his Legos. So but then they found out, like a bunch of investigating by CoffeeZilla and stuff, they found out that the collection is probably worth around $107,000 instead of $200,000 that they marked it as. This is not the Menzel's fault. This is not Reckless Ben's fault. It was the company that went out and promoted it as a $200,000 collection. So there wasn't any dishonesty there by the Menzel's or by Reckless Ben. But this is where we are now. And Reckless Ben is getting tried for RICO charges, trying to get those Legos back to the Menzel's and everything. And Reckless Ben is totally in the right. I fully believe that, even though some of his antics were not quote unquote lawful. So, but I believe that the law will sort it out in a way that Reckless Ben is not going to prison. So,
like, it's not like Florida where there's several districts, like a north of the
he
South
did what
district.
was wrong. Oh. Sorry about that. He did what was wrong for the right reasons. All right.
There's just one for Utah. So they filed it in that district and said, hey, we want to remove this to federal court. Now, BAM Bricks and Minifigs has 30 days to fight this motion. And while this is going on, there are also ongoing mediations. So the mediation is ongoing, that discussion is ongoing, and that has been ongoing since the state court RICO case was filed by Bricks and Minifigs Corporate against Reckless Ben. So they're allowed to keep talking. They're allowed to keep going through the motions of trying to settle this outside of court. And that's very, very important. But what's also important is this message.
This is the type of faceless animated videos that helped us grow our channel 10 times in 2025. And we created this video in under 5 minutes with 2.
Recently, a jury ordered Meta and YouTube to pay millions for their role in designing...
Now, he's been advertising this on a lot of his videos recently. I do not care for this advertisement, but we are going to watch it because I'm reacting to his video. So if this falls on you, make sure you mention Legal Mindset.
And promoting addictive platforms. They knew their apps could contribute to anxiety, depression, and body image issues, but did not share those risks while prioritizing profits. The recent historic verdict underscores the consequences of those decisions. If you or your child spent years growing up on social media and experienced serious mental health struggles, you should hear this. Morgan & Morgan is stepping up to hold these platforms accountable for the harm they caused. You can use the link in my description or scan the QR code to take a short quiz to see if you qualify for a case. You may be entitled to a potential recovery of over $1,000.
All right, so let's get into this federal removal. So this just...
Now, not to take away from his advertisement, but the reason why I don't like things like this is we all had a choice to go on social media. I know our ward kind of pushes us towards social media, but I was a kid when social media came out. Okay, I was a teenager. All my friends used it. If I wanted to talk to cute girls in high school, I needed to use social media. I remember like AOL Instant Messenger was really hot for a while, then MySpace, and yes, my ex-girlfriend made me get into MySpace, and then it was Facebook, and then it blew up, right? And this is all I'm the first generation to experience this, okay? The millennial on the young side of I guess on the late side, I should say, of the millennials, right? So it is, when I say late side, I mean I'm a younger millennial, right? So I grew up with all this. It's a choice. That's why I fully did. Did social media mess up a lot of stuff? Sure, but it's not social media in itself that did that. It's our attention to social media, our choices when it comes to social media. That all played more of a part than the actual social media. It's like inventing weapons for defense, right? You invent a weapon, but someone uses it as a weapon of war. Is it the fault of the weapon, or is it the fault of the person wielding the weapon? So again, I feel like social media is the same. So
came down. Obviously, you see the in this post here, the lawyers for Ben Schneider, his company.
I am gonna move my avatar just a little bit because he deserves the full screen.
And Victor Nguyen have filed a notice of removal in the district court, saying here, generally this freezes all proceedings until the federal judge decides whether they will take jurisdiction or remand the case. So this is accurate. So essentially, they're going to need to decide what to do now with this removal. So now that they're saying, hey, we want to remove this to federal court, the judge now has to say, okay, is this permissible? Is this not permissible? Are we going to allow that?
Oh,
so what are some of the...
I think my screen's not even totally centered. Okay, that
facts that lead us
actually
to this being something they can do. Well, if you look over here, Victor Nguyen is a resident of California. Brian Mansell, who agreed to this and consented to this, which is very, very important here, is a resident of Oregon. So there's diversity of citizenship between the plaintiffs and defendants. Diversity means they're not from the same place. They're not all from Utah. This is not a case where everybody is in Utah Utah. They're all Utahians. Sorry, people from Utah. I probably said that wrong. But you see, that's the primary reason, and that's a very good reason to remove this to federal court. And there are several advantages that do come along with that.
I agree with that. This is a total win for Reckless Ben.
Read some other reasoning here. Plaintiff Baker Bricks, LLC, alleges in the complaint that it is a Utah corporation. A corporation shall be deemed to be a citizen of every state and foreign state by which it has been incorporated, and the state or foreign state which has principal place of business. Baker Bricks, LLC's principal place is Utah, and its certification of organization is filed in Utah. Plaintiffs allege that the verified complaint that Baker is a Utah limited liability company. Taking this as true, which we will assume that's true. I don't think they're going to fight that they're a Utah company. The actual plaintiff entity in this lawsuit is Baker, the Utah LLC, not the now dissolved Oregon entity whose trade name Baker is using. Salem Baker Bricks itself was administratively dissolved on January 15th before this lawsuit was filed. In addition, the members of Baker Bricks LLC appear to be Brandon Best and Josh Johnson, who are citizens of Utah, and as shown in the application for reinstatement they filed. So they're saying, hey, look, these guys, this corporation is really a Utah corporation, but we're going to try to get diversity here. And this is a massive advantage for Ben for multiple reasons. Correct. First of all, there's stronger First Amendment and anti-SLAPP protection. So First Amendment, free speech, that's going to be very strong at the federal level. And
this might be able to get Ben to be able to release his videos to, like the part 3 and stuff. I would be more than happy for that. I want to see part 3.
All those anti-SLAPP motions, that's a SLAPP motion is a strategic lawsuit against public participation. So anti-SLAPP is essentially protecting free speech, saying, hey, you can't try to silence Ben with a lawsuit. This can't be a strategic lawsuit to silence Ben. So that's Utah's anti-SLAPP laws will apply in federal court, and there'll also be very strong First Amendment protections there. There also will be a better shot at dismissing or weakening RICO cases. Now, federal judges are very familiar with RICO. They are well versed in their RICO claims. So going into federal court with judges that know RICO might give them a better shot of dismissing it, particularly as they argue, Ben argues, this is really a cobbled together case based on, bad facts, based on things that aren't true. So weakening
super bad faith. Like I can't think of a federal judge other than Democrats. Let's just put them in a row. Other than Democrats, that would rule in this Briggs and Minifigs case, because normally judges would follow the law. Now, not all judges, like I said, Democrats, but still.
And dismissing the RICO claims might be something that would be more advantageous at the federal level. Also, it's perceived as a neutral forum. So federal courts are often perceived as more fair because of their procedures, because of the judges. It's not going to be somebody who's perceived as a local judge who might be beneficial to the local Utah business against the foreign Californians and other people from other states.
Yeah, no, this needs to go federal because there is a bias, like we saw in the Fort Police, where they go, we play differently here, and then they stop, do bad traffic stops. Reckless Ben wasn't the only one recently that had a bad traffic spot. There was a veteran who had one where the Fort Police actually had to have a press conference shortly before this Reckless Ben stuff ever happened, right? And they had to apologize to this vet and apologize for the way the officers stopped him and handled the situation and everything like that. The officer should have never stopped him, and the vet was exactly right. But you can't have a biased judge in this, and because the whole perception, I'm gonna say, because of the Fort Police Department and everyone being Mormon and all this stuff, because of the perception, you need to have this leave Utah.
States, it's going to be a perceived area where the procedure, the judges are used to people from other jurisdictions or used to people from other states, and therefore it's somewhere that is perceived as more fair. And generally, I would say federal courts are very, very fair when dealing with diversity cases.
I think
also,
so
they
too.
would get a chance at a fresh review of the TRO. Now, we're going to go into the temporary restraining order and
That's
what happened
what I
with that
gone.
on a separate video. So make sure you like this video, you're subscribed, because that's going to be a
why
whole
would you do this
separate
to me?
video where we
Why would you do this to me? That's actually why I'm here, but I am going to like your video. All right.
talk about the TRO. But they're going to get another bite of the apple if they go to federal court. They're going to get a chance to look at that and tell the federal judge, hey, we think this is, this is crowding our First Amendment right. This is taking away our First Amendment rights. And a federal judge might be willing to say, you know what, even though this was a win for Ben, because I do think Ben is still winning when it comes to the TRO, I think he would be able to win harder in federal court.
Yeah.
Also, in terms of strategic leverage and settlement and procedure, all of that is going to be more fair. And also the leverage, the visibility, the power that Ben has, that's going to be increased by moving it to federal court versus state court. So Ben is going to be in a better situation in that mediation, in the negotiations with Bricks and Minifigs, in order to come to a reasonable settlement with them. So let's go to my judgment. So in judgment, I think it's an excellent tactical move by Ben's team. I think this was very wise for them to do to try to move this to federal.
To bounce off what he's saying, though, I agree that it was a great move. We've known that this was coming for about a month and a half, right? This was the goal, and it looks like we've achieved this goal.
Federal court. So big up on Ben's lawyers. I think they're doing an excellent job so far, and this is something that will change the game if they're able to get it into federal court. And it'll be perceived as more fair procedurally, and will also protect Ben's speech. I think his First Amendment rights will be best protected in federal court. I'm not saying that his First Amendment goes away in state court. That's not at all the case, but I do think that federal judges are very careful about the First Amendment. They might be even more on Ben's side when it comes down to the rulings, and that's what I think a lot of people are looking at is, hey, how are we going to protect his freedom of speech and his ability to make videos and make content? Now, this is not a win for Ben. Ben doesn't automatically win because it goes to federal.
So I think it's a win that it moves to federal court. I don't think it's a win for the case. So I do think I think that's what he's saying right here is it's not a guaranteed win, it going to federal case. But I do say that it's a win that it's being moved out of state case. For sure, it's a win.
Court. However, it does massively increase his leverage, and I think Bricks and Minifigs is now pushed even deeper into a position to settle. So Bricks and Minifigs keeps taking L's. They keep pushed back and back and back.
Taking L's, so it is a win.
On their position. And I think Bricks and Minifigs didn't want to settle with Ben. I think that they wanted to kind of fight this out. But the more that he's fighting back with these procedural moves, like moving to federal court, the better position he's in. And I think they can come to a better settlement when they eventually get there, which is what I think this will come down to in the end. But I want to know what you guys think in the comments below, and I will catch you on the next one.
That's just my opinion. I want to see Bricks and Minifigs lose, and I want to see them badly. I don't want them to settle. I want Ben to win. But yeah, Bricks and Minifigs, as far as corporate goes, unless the McNabb brothers, take an early retirement, I wouldn't buy from them, and that's just my opinion. So, okay, bye.